Hello there, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of the Train Crash podcast. Today is yet again a different one, but this one is we're reviewing our A4 Diorama competition entries. Now, we've both been taken aback by number one, how many people have got involved with this on Instagram and on our own web and through the email, but also the quality of the entries. They are far beyond anything that we ever imagined. We've actually had that many that we're not going to show our own entries. So those will go up on the Instagram. So maybe that's a little bit of a teaser to go and follow the Instagram, and they'll be put up the day that this podcast comes out. Another thing, just before we go into things, we've got a target for the end of the year. Now, it's quite a big target for our channel, but if you could really help us, it would mean a lot. We're targeting 100 subscribers by the end of 2020. Hopefully, we'll continue putting out content. Hopefully, the quality will improve a little bit more, and there'll be some more variety as well going forward. So, yeah, please do feel free to subscribe if you are enjoying the content. And yeah, help us reach that target of 100 subscribers. So we're going to drop straight into the actual podcast now, the meat and bones as such, with an entry from Harv. Instantly, all social medias will be linked in the description, so you can go follow people on that. Please do. It's a nice way of rewarding people for getting involved with the competition. So yeah, the first one, as I say, is from Harv, and it's a layout that's based. It's based on a platform at Newbury Station on the Dreedway Paddington Penzance main line. There was a lot of traffic. It was predominantly horsebox initially, but military in the final years. He also sent us a pitch, which I'm not sure whether we'll be able to use for copyright reasons, of looks like a Dean Goods on a little suburban. Well, it looks like it's on a passenger turn, so it really gives us a flavour of what the layout's about. And yeah, this layout really uses the A4 space really well. That's something that I really like about this layout.
Yeah, I really like the simplicity of it as well. It's just got so much atmosphere, yet it's really not overdone. You're really kind of drawn to the focus points, the diorama, which is kind of like that really nice car by the fence, the lamp on the platform, the logo in the platform, and it's really just quite kind of restrained, like a less is more approach. And the colours really help kind of enhance that as well. Something I also really like with this is how the photos were all taken outside. Now, natural light is the best light to take photos in, and even just kind of looks like the background of his garden or something, but that kind of just natural kind of light and a bit of greenery in the background, it really just lifts and enhances down. Makes it quite look quite realistic as well. Big fan of it.
Definitely. I'm not sure what sort of camera is used to take this. Maybe it's a newer iPhone where you've got the special focus points and the background blurring cameras. But yeah, I really like this layout. There's a lot, as you say, it's very simple, but there's a lot to like about the layout as well. And as you mentioned, the focal points are really interesting, and the way they're not always central as well is another thing that I particularly like about all layouts in general. But this layout's done it particularly well.
Absolutely. So shall we move on to our next entry?
Yeah, do you want to take away with this
Yeah.
one?
So this entry was done by my good friend Matthew Locke. Now he actually sent this by Snapchat, but we're going to put it in kind of the Instagram entries category. Now this is a kind of fictional 1950s, 60s generic kind of goods yard scene, and I really like the way that he's kind of captured looks like as if it's kind of a part of a wider thing. I know we talked about this before, but it's kind of got like details hinting that it's something part of something bigger. So you've got kind of the sleepers where the track could have used to be, and to really cleverly use details as well. Really like kind of the wheel sets there and like the pug loco in the background towards the shed.
Definitely. And obviously, with this A4 space being the maximum, we have found people are inventing special ways and ways that I've not really seen before to make the model seem like it is within a bigger system. And I think this is something that this layout does particularly well. And it's obviously nice to have the 03 or 04 as the focal point as such for the layout, but it's not dead center. It's like it's working, and I think that's a nice little feature.
Yeah, and also it kind of really keeps to our budget ethos. It's kind of using a super quick good shed that he had lying about and built on a bit of polystyrene. It's really just using what he had lying about, which is kind of what we wanted the competition to kind of all be about, really.
Definitely something to keep everybody busy during lockdown, which is still going on. Um, but yeah, I particularly like it. I like how the figures in there as well, but that's not a main drawing point of it. The more you look at it, the more you see, and that's something again that we found with a lot of these layouts.
Absolutely. So should we move on to entry three then? So this was also an Instagram entry, and this was done by Dave Kirk. Great account, check that out. And this is something that I really love about it. Straight up, is it Scottish? Not only is it Scottish, it's got salsas on it. So for me, tick tick. Um, and I really like the use of the photographic backdrop in this. I think it really kind of, though it's kind of not explicitly Scotland, it really draws you into Scotland, and it helps you to kind of see it as kind of more realistic and kind of as a wider layout as well.
Definitely, and as we mentioned before, the kind of less is more approach has worked for, I believe, all of these layouts, bar Dave's entry, are double O. So this Engage one's kind of like a slightly different ethos, where there's a bit more track work in it, a bit more going on, but because obviously Engage is so much smaller, it kind of allows it to still work within this space, and it looks like a yard. There's bits of clutter about, bits and bobs about, and it's a nice little layout. I enjoy just looking at it because it's again another one that the more you look at it, the more it kind of describes where it's from, and I think that's a really nice feature of this layout.
Yeah, and there's no really real like standout like glossy or particularly glary points. A lot of it's kind of weathered or much darker colours, which I think really works quite well for it. It kind of creates an idea of like a shadowy kind of yard somewhere in like suburban Scotland somewhere, and that's something I really like about it.
Definitely. So we're going to drop onto the next one now, which is from Micro Layout, again from Instagram. And this one's called The Ginnel, which I believe is like a local dialect term for like alleyway sort of thing. But basically, it's a short preserved section of the Leiston Works Railway in Suffolk. So it's a small preserved railway. And yeah, we both are great lovers of this layout. It's really, really well done. Some of the camera angles look make it look so much realistic. Again, it's one that's taken using natural light and outside to kind of aid the realism of it as such. But yeah, I really like the way, because this is based on pictures, obviously, of real life, and it does look like real life, and I really like that.
Yeah, and something that I really like about it is I've seen this kind of the setting, this preserve in real life, well, on YouTube, on a couple of different channels, where a Rustin did actually run to open the line, and I believe the layout builder actually helped open this line with a Rustin, and so there's just so much kind of, I guess, kind of history and interest going behind it. And for me, when I saw this being entered, it was instantly recognizable as well. I think that's a really a good sign of quality modelling when you can recognise it off a real location, without being told that beforehand. And again, like you said, the photo angles really bring it to life. One of the details that I really love is a couple of wheelie bins.
Yeah,
Like for me, it's so simple, but I kind of want to know where you got them from, because I think even though I don't model image, I think they're just so iconic, and there's just lots of little details. And also, what I really like is it's kind of boxed off, so you're forced to kind of look at the Ruston. You're not, even though it's photos taken outdoor, you're not kind of looking at the trees in the background or anything like that. Your focus and your attention's really drawn into the modelling and the skill that's gone behind it.
certainly. And just a little thing about like boxing it in as such, almost like the second run of housing. There's only a little bit of it there. So you've got the two main houses, terraced houses, and then there's the wall. There's the railway, then the wall, and then the almost like the tall wall of what would be another house. But that house isn't fully there, and I think it's an exquisite bit of modelling, because on the low down photos, such as the one where you're looking through the gate, it really does box the layout in. And if I'm honest, I don't think I would have been bothered to do that, but it really helps box the layout in, and as you say, make the Ruston the focal point of the layout.
Absolutely. So we'll move on to our next entry. Now, this was by Jago or Jargo Hazard via Instagram and also our own web, so it's kind of a transition one. Now, this diorama is really clever, and it's a really great way and quite a clever way to use of space, because this guy has used forced perspective. Now, that's where you kind of create the thing in front of the camera bigger, than the thing further away from the camera smaller, to give the impression of depth and distance. Now, this has been done very cleverly. It's sort of kind of like a London suburban slums with a viaduct running in the background. I believe it's set in the 1880s or around that era. And I really like the scratch built houses on the front of this. Now, I know you really like the viaduct, but for me, the scratch built houses and kind of that kind of dirty, kind of watery, muddy, kind of stream drainage thing in between the houses really just adds a nice kind of layer of depth to it. And the houses as well, they've got great colours on them. They're all really toned down and weathered and chipped and battered. And I could really picture myself, being on that street. And the weathering in a weird way, it makes me kind of smell smells and kind of imagine like the smoke billowing out. It really helps, create a realistic environment, I think.
Definitely, and I think it's pre-group and it's from the 1880s. That's when it's depicting, and I think it is a really good representation of that. When I saw it, it reminded me of a couple of like that sort of era. So that's been represented in more modern media, so like through telly shows and that. It looks a little bit like the Assassin's Creed that was set in London at that sort of time. They spent ages working on the graphics and the design of the buildings in that. When I first saw this layout, I did think of that straight away, and I think that's obviously kudos to, is it Frostbite that make the Assassin's Creed games, but
I
also
think so.
kudos to the modeler, because it's so well done. It's so well done. I really like the fact that it's so tall. I believe it's actually the tallest layout we've had sent into us, and obviously you're only working in an A4 space, so to get the height to work properly is something that's very impressive and something that I would like to work on myself. And that's something that we've both found when we're discussing the layouts we've been sent in. We're learning things from the modelers that have done this, because obviously we both model micro layouts. We're learning things from it, and height, something that I really want to learn how to use effectively on my own layouts.
Absolutely. Right, so on to some of our last entries now in the R and Web category. Now, this is Colliery Screens, I believe, by S136. And straight up, this is a colliery, and I really like collieries. I've modeled collieries myself, and for me, they just really captured the look of industrial railways in like the 50s, 60s, spot on. Like the brickwork and that kind of building that's really well cut off to fit inside the A4 kind of size dimensions just looks absolutely fantastic. And the kind of the craftsmanship's that gone behind creating that kind of like the ramshackle tin, corrugated iron lean-to kind of screen shed and the pipe work going across it really stands out as a really nice scenic break as well, and a nice way to kind of frame the diorama.
Certainly. Obviously, as a colliery modeler, it's interesting to me. The prototype pictures as well, which you can find on the RM web thread, so we'll leave that linked in the description below. You can see where he's taking inspiration from. And again, much like some of the others, the track's coming in at an angle, which is things we like to see on layouts. It's very difficult to do on layouts, but it's coming in at an angle, and it's really using the little space available to properly paint a scene.
Definitely. And again, like a lot of the other entries, it's got really great colours used. It's got a really nice toned down, weathered palette. So many different variations of greys and blacks and browns and kind of brick tones. It's definitely a big highlight for me. So, do you want to take the last entry for us then?
Yes, so this is from Spot LC, um, which is a malting plant, or at least a depiction of it. I believe it's called Gray's Malting. And yeah, as you can see from the pictures, it's really well framed within the fascias of the actual diorama itself, but also there's a lot of height differentiation. There's some color changes and variations in there. You've kind of got obviously the industrial scene there with the truck and the wagons and the railway architecture, things like that. We've also got the hinting of it kind of being almost on the outskirts of a town with the trees beginning to come through and things like that. I particularly like the way that the layout has got that variation in height and the variation in tonal color as well.
Yeah, something else to add is this is the only entry that it was in 3 mil scale, so that's kind of halfway between 00 and N gauge, and I think it's played really nicely because you get that great level kind of crossover between a really nice ability to detail quite easily and that's compact, and it just seems to work so well. And the way the scenes kind of being composed as well, you got a nice bit of height relief, bit of depth, the rolling stock, it kind of makes you wonder what's underneath that bridge apart from the grain wagon. And I think what else sets it apart as well is the lighting. I think it was the only entry that included lighting that works, and I really like it. I think it just adds even more atmosphere. It means you could, in theory, have the diorama on display in the dark. and it just gives it so many different options. I could imagine it being built into even a wider system or a wider layout in the future.
Definitely, definitely. And yeah, as we've said, we are in awe of every single one of these dioramas that have come in. But yeah, as I mentioned, the tonal variation is really nice because it's very rare on a layout that you can get the like industrial tones and the greenery tones to work well together. And I think this layout really is an example of how it can be done. And it's not an idea. Oh, it is an idea I'm going to be nicking. I can't lie.
Yeah, definitely. I think we've both just learned so much from this competition. Now, it's the first competition we have run like together as Train Crash, and we would, maybe be interested in running another competition in the future. So if you're interested, let us know in the comment section down below. Now, we just both like to say that this has been so difficult to judge. Now, we've decided that we'll have a winner, and then we've both picked up runners up because we couldn't just settle on one entry. There's just so much discussion going around, and every diorama has been entered is just fantastic. We've learned something different from every single one of them, and we'll include that um, in our own modelling. As we said earlier, if you want to see our own entries, they'll be on the Train Crash Pod Instagram. So my runner-up has got to go to Grey's Maltings in 3mm scale. For me, I just loved the way this was presented. I loved what it kind of was trying to recreate, and I just loved the backstory behind it as well, and the way there's just so much craftsmanship went into that, and so much thought went into placing every single little thing, and then and the lighting. For me, I was watching it kind of evolve and be built on our web, and for me, it just kept getting better and better and better. So that is, my favourite for the runners up.
Certainly, yeah. That was watching all the layouts on our own web develop were really, really nice. My runner up is actually again from our own web, and that is the colliery layout. I just really like the industrial scene of it, and obviously it's a bit of industrial bias maybe, but it's really, really well done. And again, it's the use of the space. It's 2-track. Now, in my own layout, I was experimenting with 2-track, but I just couldn't get it to work. It works really well on this one. The little colour that is there works really well with each other. There's the little speedo sign, which I've only just noticed. There's figures, and the figure placement's placed just right. And yeah, I really, really like the way that the whole scene works together, and it makes it seem like there's more. And I really, really like that fact. That's something that I really want to incorporate into my own modelling, is so it doesn't look like it's just one layout. It looks like it could be part of a bigger system.
Yeah, and now our winner for the Train Crash Diorama A4 Diorama Competition 2020 goes to Jago Hazard's South London Slum Diorama. Now, we both kind of, when we were thinking about it separately, we both kind of brought this to the table thinking, this is a layout or diorama that we really, really like. And it's just so clever, and there's such, a mastermind going behind this about depicting a scene that there aren't really many photos about as well. And so being able to create something that, just looks so realistic and has got so much detail in every angle, and we're really drawn to so many different focus points, and it's just got so much potential as well. We both absolutely love that diorama.
Certainly, certainly, and it's all the layouts, all the dioramas were really, really well done. And as you previously mentioned, we're all learning stuff from it, and hopefully, you guys watching will learn from it, learn from these as well, some hints and ideas and things. If you do, we'd love to hear in the comment section below. But yeah, this layout really, really well incorporates the bits and bobs. I believe it's a Hornby Terrier that's on there. I think particularly nice that livery. The coach as well really brings it all together. And then yeah,
and it's a pre-grouping scene as well, which you don't really see modelled very often. And so to see a pre-grouping scene modelled so well is just, absolutely fantastic. We loved it. So I guess this kind of brings this episode to a close. Now, we don't think we mentioned it at the beginning, but we have just launched our first range of double gauge train crash model kit. Now, it'd be a great way to support the channel, and we'd love to hear what you get on and how you get on with them. If you do purchase one, bob us a message on the Instagram account. So thanks for watching, listening, and we will see you in the next pod. I don't know what we've got planned, but we'll see you then. Stay safe. Bye.
thank you very much for watching.